أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين. أما بعد، قالوا أبا عبد الله الحسين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه: إني لم أخرج عشيرا ولا باطلا ولا مفسدا ولا ظالما، وإنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح لأمة جدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير بسيرة جدي محمد وأبي علي بن أبي طالب صلى الله عليه وسلم. My respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi. Allah ajurana wa ajurakum bi musabina Abi Abdullah al-Husayn salawatullah salamuhu alayhi. Our discussions concerning the prophetic model, the way in which we would try to appreciate the Holy Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the world, era and paradigm that we live in, has allowed us to explore many facets. We have by and large come to the conclusions of our discussion. What we have been stating is that Rasulullah must bring a trajectory of growth in his community. He must be a transforming movement that brings people together from their separations towards their unities. He must be welcoming to all faiths. He must be appreciative of people at their capacity, their standard of thought, their experiences that they bring to this world. The Prophet must be one, ultimately, who for every individual, every community, every society, must be one who gets the best out of people, irrespective of what position they are in. And as such, these are primary lessons that you and I take away as to how we want our own personalities to be, how we want our communities to be, how we want our societies to be. And so in light of that, we looked at the Reformation movement of the Holy Prophet of Islam, understood that when he came to his community, he had to be a person who liberated his community from the particular strangleholds, the chains that held them back from being able to move forward as a community. And so for us, we need to also reflect upon the chains that hold us back in our own society, us being able to move forward at our own pace. Yesterday, we spoke about the position, the value of the Holy Quran in that liberation process, in that ultimately everything is found within the Holy Quran. For us, in our belief system, the Holy Quran is the primary source for guidance. It was the primary source of guidance for Ahlul Bayt, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. And so we need to read and reform ourselves and mold ourselves in accordance with the methodology of the Holy Quran. In light of that, our discussion tonight and tomorrow must bring about and go towards certain conclusions. We have been discussing the concept that if Rasulullah was to come today, if the Imam was to come today, he ultimately would be faced with this era, he would be faced with these challenges. And as such, it is necessary for our community to be able to be aware of those challenges and to face up to those challenges, not to turn away from those challenges, but rather to be able to create short, medium, and long-term plans in order to face the challenges of our community, both at the local, granular level, but also at the broader, international level, the global level that we are facing. What do I mean by this? If you look at the world today, there are primary challenges that are facing us. For example, at the global community level, one of the foremost challenges is something like the environment, and how there is the issue and the discussion of global warming, the issue of how the environment is changing. The question I pose is, as the Shia community, globally and locally, what is our response to that? How do we play a part of that challenge? Are we to sit back only and allow debates to take place at the level of the United Nations, and then whatever is dictated to us, we just decide to follow along? Or is there a need within our scholastic community, within our political leadership, at the international level and at the granular level, the local level, to be able to take charge, to be able to read those material, to be able to decide how the community is going to be able to react to that? Another challenge, the focus of our discussion this evening, will be Islamic extremism and terrorism. This is a global issue, and it has come here to us, the United States of America. It has come home to us in the United Kingdom, and the reality of which is, it is not looking like it is going to depart anytime soon. It may only get worse. Do we have a robust plan to deal with this? Have we sat down as a community and decided our responses to this, how we are going to engage the communities around us to demonstrate who we are, to demonstrate what we are doing to tackle such a huge issue at a global as well as at our own local communal level? Here we need to appreciate one thing, that the community has to have a balance between two things. This is very important. Please pay attention to this. A community must have a balance between two things. The first is having its own trajectory of growth, having its own vision, deciding where it wants to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 25 years, in 50 years' time. I ask a very simple question. At a national level of Shi'ism, at a national level of Islam, at a local level within the community, do we have a vision of where we want to go in the short to medium to long-term future? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Could we also ask now for the brothers to move forward so we don't have to stop the discussion later on? The sisters are moving forward. Can I also ask the brothers to move forward? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali علي الأكبر صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السيدة أم ليلى صلوات الله وسلامه عليها صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. A community is required to have two functions of leadership. Very important. The first is to have a vision, a plan of where we are going, what we want to become, who we are, what we want to espouse, what we want to achieve. This will be our discussion tomorrow evening, inshallah. The second facet of a community is to be reactionary to the challenges that it faces today. And so, as we said, for example, be it at a global level of the environment, be it the issue of terrorism, be it the way in which we choose to educate our children and our youth, there needs to be a plan at all times to decide how we're going to structure ourselves in the immediacy of what the challenges face us. For example, within this community, have a reflection with me. Work with me on this, inshallah. We have many youth downstairs, correct or not? Many youth. Dozens of youth sitting downstairs of various ages. Some of them are going to be 5 years old, some of them are going to be 12 years old, some of them are going to be 15 years old. Now, I'm only looking from what I can see, but those youth that are downstairs, they are not upstairs listening to majlis, are they? What are they doing? The vast majority are running, they are playing, they are enjoying themselves, they're doing something. When I was sitting downstairs just now, preparing the discussion, there's several of them playing and enjoying, and rightly so, no problem. This is something that is encouraged for youth to be able to enjoy. As we hear from the ahadith, the children's youth are divided into three, from 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 onwards. And so there is a time and a place. But when the community comes together for the majlis, that age bracket must be accommodated for. If that age bracket can't be here because our words aren't appealing, because I am not appealing, because the level of discourse is slightly higher than what they may be able to appreciate, it can't be that when they come to the majlis, there's nothing there for them. We need to be able to accommodate for that. It might be a workshop that is at their age. It might be something that they color in, they play, they do something. There may be a younger speaker that comes for them, a teacher from the Sunday school that comes and molds that age group. Because if they are not regular in coming to the majlis of Hussein ibn Ali now, then when they become independent, they certainly will not be coming to the majlis of Hussein ibn Ali. And so we need to accommodate for that. This is something of our time, something of our era. And so it needs to be that we accommodate for that given circumstance. We need to be flexible enough to ask, what are our challenges at the granular level, at the international level, and at the global level, and be able to respond to those. Community must be balanced between these two weights. One, we must always have a vision of where we want to go. Vision will continuously mold itself and change. And at the same time, we must have a reaction to what is occurring to us right now. And so one of the greatest tests, greatest trials and tribulations for us today in the 21st century at the level of global Islam, humanity at its global level, is the issue of Islamic extremism, Islamic extremism, and terrorism. There's no doubt about this. And right now, every conversation that is taking place on the news, every time we pick up a newspaper, when we decide to look on our news feeds and the social networking, we are constantly seeing the issue of Islamic extremism and terrorism. The first problem is that when it comes to Islamism, which is known today as being Islamic extremism, there is no unified definition of what that is. What is an Islamic extremist? Is someone who keeps a beard an Islamic extremist? Is someone who wears hijab an Islamic extremist? Am I extreme for praying 5 times a day? Am I extreme for wanting an Islamic state? What defines extremism? According to some psychologists, they have done certain studies. One interestingly came out with a response and said, extremism is levied at everyone from any way in which you don't agree with. The moment you don't agree with someone, it is easier for you to label them as extreme because in your worldview, they are not conforming to the way in which you live. And so for anyone who doesn't want Islam to flourish, the easiest thing to do is to say any type of Islamic aspect is extreme. The moment you follow your religion, you are extreme. And so today, the rhetoric, anything that is deemed as being Islamic, anyone who fulfills their duties at the minimal level is also extreme in their own way. Anyone who doesn't conform to another version of liberalism is considered extreme. And so this is something that we need to define properly. This is a discourse that needs to be able to take place. What do you define as actual extremism? Now, extremism has always been there within the Islamic Ummah. It has always been there. And of course, Quran and Ahl al-Bayt have always tried to argue against this, fight against this, stop extremism from taking place. Extremism has a very dangerous reaction to the person who sees extremism. Let us look at 2 of these issues. The first one is extremism being present within Islamic history, how Rasulullah dealt with it, and ultimately how extremism in the history of Ahl al-Bayt has also turned people away from Ahl al-Bayt. At the time of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of the earliest and greatest companions is by the name of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. Abu Dharr is one of the greatest of companions. We have narrations to the extent of which states there is no one under the skies more truthful than Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. If you want to look at the ibadat, the worship of Isa ibn Maryam, look at Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. SubhanAllah, we're talking about a companion who is being given a similitude to an individual who is amongst the Ulul Azm prophets. Now, based upon this, he is a giant of a companion. But that doesn't mean that he didn't undergo his own growth, his own understanding and development of the religion. The biographers of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari speak about his conversion to Islam. Of course, Abu Dharr was from Banu Ghifar. According to the historians, Banu Ghifar, they were a particular type of tribe in Arabia. They were a tribe who used to become or were highway robbers. If a trade caravan was passing them, they would go and steal that trade. They were highway robbers. And so often, this was what they were famous for, either raiding particular caravans or raiding particular local areas, people who were living in tribes. They were famous for coming in and raiding and stealing from them. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari didn't have any high position by virtue of nobility, by virtue of being born into a senior family of his tribe, Banu Ghifar. Rather, Abu Dharr received the heights of his tribe. He was receiving a seniority of position within his tribe because he was amongst the most bravest of those who were the highway robbers. If a tribe or if a party was passing him, he would have the audacity, the braveness to be able to say to his tribe, leave it to me, I'll take them out on my own. And so he would be this kind of person. And so he was very famous because of his bravery, his rashness, his outspoken nature of how Abu Dharr was amongst his own community. And so Abu Dharr had heard about Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. An incident had sparked the inquisitive nature of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. It is said that one day he was sitting and in front of him was the idol of Banu Ghifar. Yes, there was the idol, these stones, these rocks, all placed together. And normally you would come and you would give a sacrifice and pray to this idol to give you that thing that you are looking for. Abu Dharr narrates, I was sitting and I was watching this idol, I was in front of it. And all of a sudden an animal walked past and urinated on my idol. At that moment, I said to myself, if this idol can't protect itself, how is it going to protect me? As in, I'm the one praying for its protection. I'm praying for protection from it. If it can't even stop a fox coming and urinating on it, how can it assist me when I'm in my situations? And so from that moment, it sparked the inquisitive nature, the questions. And you know, for any human being, once you spark a question, once you make a person think for themselves, there's no stopping where they can become. Problem is when you close off the mind. The problem is when you stop people from asking questions. The problem is when you stop people from inquiring about who they are and what they want to become. And so at this point, he hears about this man, this prophet, who's claiming Nubuwwat from Mecca. The biography says that he sends his brother towards Mecca in order to listen to this man's speech. The brother comes back and says, all your questions you've been asking about God, all the things you've been inquiring about your purpose and your existence, this man has the answers, go towards him. So Abu Dharr leaves and he goes towards Mecca. The biographers say, when he comes towards Mecca, he comes and he is found around the Holy Kaaba. Where do you want to go? If you're going to go towards Mecca in order to see a movement, the first place you're going to go is the Holy Kaaba. So he goes towards the Holy Kaaba and he's waiting, he's looking for, this person who's preaching. He's waiting for this person to give sermons. He doesn't find anyone. Who walks past? A young boy walks past. The young boy says to him, "Excuse me, you look like a stranger in this city. I don't recognize you. Is there anything I can help you with?" He says, "No, no, I'm okay. It's all right. I'm just, waiting for someone here." The young boy says, "Okay. Well, do you have anywhere to stay tonight, seeing as you're a stranger in the city?" He said, "Well, actually, I don't have anywhere to stay." The young boy says to him, "In that case, you're welcome to come to my house. We will put you up." Early in the morning, Abu Dharr gets up and he leaves. He goes straight towards the Kaaba again in order to find Rasulullah. Again, he doesn't find Rasulullah. There's no coming and going from any man who's claiming to be preaching prophethood. Again, the young boy comes to him, "Did you find who you're looking for?" He says, "No, I haven't seen him yet." He says, "Well, you're welcome again to come back to my house." Second night, he stays in the house of this young boy. Third morning, he gets up again early in the morning. He goes towards the Kaaba. Again, he's waiting for this man to be preaching. He doesn't find him. And so again, for the third time, the young boy comes and says, "Did you find who you're looking for?" He says, "No." This time, this young boy, instead of saying, "Come home and stay with me," he asks him, "Tell me who you are looking for." Abu Dharr says, "I'm looking for a man by the name of Muhammad. Do you know anyone by the name of Muhammad?" The young boy is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, "Do I know Muhammad?" There is no one who knows Muhammad like Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. So he takes him towards Rasulullah. Rasulullah sits with him, and in a matter of minutes, Abu Dharr converts towards Islam. Abu Dharr, as I said, he is of a very explosive nature. He's very outspoken. Abu Dharr had so much love for Rasulullah, he overflowed in that love and wanted people to convert towards Islam. This is a very important point, because today we have many preachers, many of us, who have overflowing love for Ahlul Bayt, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, and rightly so. There is nothing we can do in this universe that is worthy of their stature. There is no amount of love and devotion that we can give that is worth even the dust underneath the dust of Ahlul Bayt, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. But that needs to be tempered. It needs to be given a direction and a channel. If I am someone who loves Ahlul Bayt, the way in which I project that love has to be an intellectual methodology, not purely an emotional methodology. I can't be projecting love in a way that causes fitna amongst my own community. This was something that was going to be taught to the earliest Muslims. The problem is sometimes we forget these lessons because we don't review Rasulullah. What happens? Abu Dharr is so overflowing with love, he walks out of the house of Rasulullah, walks straight towards the Holy Kaaba, and in his loudest of voices, he says, "Oh, all of you who are kuffar, if you don't turn towards Rasulullah, all of you are damned, you're going towards hellfire." Now, he was one of the earliest companions. What do you think happened in Mecca? You remember what they did to people like Bilal al-Habashi, yes? How they used to torture companions. Bilal, we read in the books, he had a black stone placed upon his chest. This is not all the level of torture that occurred to those early companions. Umayyah ibn Khalaf, one of the greatest enemies of Rasulullah, who was the master, the keeper of Bilal al-Habashi, do you know what he used to do in torture? He made Bilal al-Habashi sleep and eat in the pens of the sheep. How do sheep eat? He made Bilal eat in that same way. You know what he did? He tied a rope around Bilal's neck and walked him like a dog on all fours in the streets of Mecca. He told the people of Mecca, the children of Mecca, pick up stones and hurl them towards Bilal al-Habashi. This was the torture of the earliest companions. What happened there inside the Holy Kaaba or around the Holy Kaaba? Abu Dharr called out, "All of you must follow Rasulullah, otherwise all of you are doomed towards hell." Do you know what happened? those individuals there, they literally fought Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. They literally jumped him, punched him, beat him, kicked him, until Abu Dharr was bloodied and bruised. He got dragged out of that scuffle and taken back towards the house of Rasulullah. Rasulullah sat with him and said, Abu Dharr, this is a very delicate time. Your actions have consequences. Yes? You do realize that there are only a few of us. One narration says Abu Dharr was the 4th convert to Islam. We're very few of us. We have to be strategic. We have to be intelligent. We have to realize that your actions have consequences. And so please do not do this. Do you know what the narration says? Rasulullah went into a room in order to get some water and cloth in order to clean the blood of Abu Dharr. Do you know what Abu Dharr did? He got up, walked out, went back to the Kaaba and started shouting at them again. You're going to become kafir, you're going to go to burn in hell, you must follow Rasulullah, you must... What happened? They jumped him again. Again, he got dragged back towards the house of Rasulullah. Rasulullah said, did I not just tell you it's a delicate time? You're going to have all of us killed. Realize that there's a response to when you do your action, things happen, things occur. Take responsibility for your actions. Think about what you are doing. The same way when we have Shia preachers today, when people come to the masjid, all they want to do is espouse polemics. All they want to do, Aisha this, Umar that, Khalid bin Walid that. We may have a difference of opinion in history, but there's a time and a place. More importantly, there's an ethic towards dialogue. Today, there are people in Quetta that are being killed because of your statements. Today, people in Bahrain are being oppressed because of your statements. Today, there'll be a bomb in Syria or in Iraq, and especially we have seen ourselves, we are doing this because of such and such a sheikh's words against Aisha. We have seen it with our own eyes. I personally, and I'm sitting on this pulpit, I personally have had people come to me and they have said, our family members in Pakistan have said, please tell those shuyukh who are speaking in those ways, causing division, causing fitna and fasad, please, we beg them to stop doing these things. We are being killed because of their words. What did Rasulullah do? Yes, Abu Dharr, that's great. It's fantastic that you have that much love, but I can't have you here in Mecca. If you're here in Mecca with us, you're going to get us all killed. Listen to that. If you're here in Mecca, the message will stop. Because of you, because of one person, the message will stop. Go back towards your tribe. You know your tribe. You know the way they are. You know the way they speak. You understand them. Go back towards Banu Ghifar and spread the message. Do you know what the narration says? Banu Ghifar, 50% of Banu Ghifar was converted by Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. You see, the same words that came from Abu Dharr to Makkah was not conducive. It didn't work. The same words from Abu Dharr to his own people who understood it worked. Can you see that? In the world that we have today, we have to understand that our words go far and wide and that we have consequences when we speak about Ahlul Bayt, when we speak about the things that are dear to us. We have to become smarter, strategic, realize the consequences of what is going to happen. Again, there is a request for us to move forward. Brothers and sisters are standing outside, unable to come in. Please move as far forward as possible to the bank here. Salawat ala Muhammad wa for the love of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One loud salawat ala Muhammad Our actions have consequences. We have to realize that extremism comes in many forms, and we have to be aware that sometimes our actions breed extremism. If we are not strategic, aware of each other, how this world is working, we might be the reason for deaths to occur around this world. I would hate to be the one on the day of judgment that runs towards Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam and says, intercede for me, O my dear lady of light. And she says, you are the one that caused oppression upon my fellow Shia. How would I feel at that moment? So we have to become very aware of our actions and the consequences. Do you know one of the greatest difficulties, trials for Ahl al-Bayt was based upon extremism within our own community? There is a time, there's an event of an individual by the name of Abu al-Khattab, Muhammad ibn Abi Zainab, Abu al-Khattab. No relation to Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph. An individual who lived at the time of our sixth Imam, Ja'far al-Sadiq sallallahu alayhi. Initially, Abu al-Khattab was deemed to be as a companion of the sixth Imam. However, this individual bred so much extremism within the community that it has had lasting impacts, possibly the greatest impact one can imagine between Shia-Sunni discourse until today. Most of us don't even know the name of Muhammad ibn Abi Zainab al-Khattab. However, this man is responsible for so much ignorance and deviation until today. What happened? He was an individual who was deemed to be a companion, and so he was always within the inner circles, always sitting around the sixth Imam, always trying to get into discussion, always speaking to great companions outside of the sixth Imam's house, and so on and so forth. Eventually, he exposed himself and showed him for what himself was truly like. He was a person that was claiming Ahl al-Bayt, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, were godlike, and he thus elevated himself to being the representative of God. So what would he do? He would say, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is God, and I am his representative. Now why do this? Why elevate Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam to godhood and make yourself in the position of Imam? As you know, the Imams, the A'imma, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, collect khumus. A lot of money is going between the palms of the Imam, being distributed to the poor and to the needy. If you are able to elevate the position of the Imam to God, God doesn't need wealth, does he? God doesn't require money. He doesn't require that source. And so if you place yourself as the Imam, you are able to take as much money as possible. And so he decided to say this. Ahl al-Bayt spent years trying to separate themselves from the movement of Abu al-Khattab, known as the Khatabiyya movement, up until the extent that we have hadith from the 8th Imam that says, there has not been a trial upon us, Ahl al-Bayt, in recent times more difficult than what Abu al-Khattab created. Why? What happened? He used to say these things, and of course, every time Ahl al-Bayt would try to distance themselves from this kind of individual. The consequence of this extremism has lasted us until today. Many years after the 6th Imam came a person by the name of Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. Have we heard of al-Bukhari? Yes. Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari has collected hundreds, thousands of narrations compiled into what he has called Sahih al-Bukhari. Of course, as we know, for our brothers, the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, after the Holy Quran, Sahih al-Bukhari is the exemplary text. It also sets a precedent of how ahadith should be collected and how they should be categorized. And so, I ask you a very simple question. How many ahadith? You see, Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari was no ordinary person. He traveled from city to city, location to location. He went to Baghdad, he went to Kufa, he went to Medina, he went to Mecca, he did a rihla. He went and traveled from every possible city to city in order to compile narrations to put into his Sahih al-Bukhari. I'm asking you a very simple question. Out of the thousands of narrations that are in Sahih Bukhari, how many narrations are coming from our 6th Imam? 1,000? 500? 100? 10? 1? 0. Not a single narration is coming from the sixth Imam. Yet us, we are told that from just his 2 or 3 years within Kufa, we have 70,000 narration from Imam Sadiq. We have those famous statements from Al-Bukhari that says that I wouldn't even pray behind a Shia. Why did he say this? What drove him to say this? As he was going around these places and collecting narrations, he had heard that the sixth Imam had elevated himself to being God and was claiming godhood. Where did he get this from? Because the Khatabiyya movement had created this statement. The Khatabiyya movement ran so far into the Muslim Ummah that Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari wasn't sure as to whether the sixth Imam truly was claiming to be God. What he heard was the sixth Imam was sitting inside Masjid Nabawi claiming to be God. Therefore, how can Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari take a single narration from Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam when he's claiming to be God? And so he didn't take a single narration into his collection of ahadith. The impact, imagine the impact of that until today. How beautiful it would have been if narrations from the greatest teacher in the history of Islam had his narrations put in towards that particular manual. How would it have affected Islam? How much knowledge would we have gained? How much would the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah been aware of Ahl al-Bayt and the brilliance of Ahl al-Bayt? But because of the stupidity, the lies, the enmity of one person in history, Muhammad ibn Ismail, because of one person, Muhammad ibn Abi Zaynab al-Khattab, because of one person in history, all of that potentiality has been wiped from us in one moment. We have to realize our actions have eternal consequences. When you throw a pebble inside a pond, what happens? It's a ripple effect. And not just one ripple, several ripples. And they all go out exponentially, don't they? And they touch the borders of that particular pond. Our statements have consequences. Our extremism has consequences. It is no wonder people are being put off by Islam when they hear and they see and they read the despicable acts that are taking place. The reality is us, the Ahl al-Tashayyu', the Shia community, should bear responsibility as much as we can to bring people back towards the reality of Islam. We shouldn't be the ones to foster and engender hatred. We shouldn't be the ones to cause division. We should be the ones who are pulling people to us. If that is what Rasulullah was, if that is what Amir al-Mu'mineen was, why would I want to be anything other than a liberating force for humanity? Why would I want to be a dividing force for humanity? Now, in light of this, the Shia community has to start thinking about how we are going to react towards these issues of Islamic extremism and terrorism. I'm asking a simple question. At a global level, is there a plan that has been made? At a national level, is there a plan that has been made? At our local communal level, is there a plan that has been made? It is baffling that in the time when so much war, so much oppression, so much killing, so much enmity between sects, and yet there is not a manual on how to bring sects closer to each other. This discussion appears not to be being had in a way that is trickling down to the masses, the ones who need it the most. We do have taqreeb conferences constantly. Is that really going to eliminate when, 10 shuyukh get together and say, yes, we must sit with each other, we must dialogue with each other, we must pray with each other? Is that really going to try to bring us back towards where we should be? Is that sufficient? That was something that needed to be established from 79. We are now in 2014. We cannot continue to keep the same issues going. We cannot continue to have the same techniques from 1979 as to where we are today. We are still arguing as to whether I can pray behind a Sunni, whether a Sunni can pray behind a Shia. It is baffling the the way in which we are as a community. Sorry, he doesn't pray with his arms down and therefore I can't pray behind him. He prays with his arms down and therefore I go and pray with him. This is alien to the ethos of the prophets. We now need to become a community that is wiser, that is strategic, that is realizing its potential and the goals, the responsibility Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed upon us. A phenomenal tradition comes to us from our holy prophet, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Islam is an amana upon you. This religion of Islam is an amana upon you. You have a responsibility to an amana, yes or no? If I give you an amana and I go away and I ask you to look after this, it's your responsibility to look after it. It has been devolved to us as individuals. Think about that very closely. God Almighty created this vast universe in order to get to know Him. And then He sent prophets and books in order to get to know Him. And then the Holy Prophet of Islam says, this religion of mine, I'm leaving it to you as an amana. Take care of this amana. Realize your responsibilities towards this religion. Still, in 2014, we have not created a plan to deal with these issues of extremism in our own community, in our own sect, and from outside our community and outside our sect. The Western powers have decided as to their tool of dealing with Islamic extremism. They decided on two things. The first thing they decided is, we will create a war on terror. And so, from 10,000 feet, and with boots on the ground, they are bombing, and this is their tool in order to destroy Islamic extremism. The reality is, this will not destroy Islamic extremism. This will only foster and breed more hatred. And the proof of this has come since 2003. Now, I am young and I'm asking my respected elders, prior to 2003, did you see what was occurring in Iraq the way it is today? Did you see every day a bomb in a market? Did you see every day beheadings, 30 people lying in a ditch being shot? Yes, there was oppression. But this form of liberation and liberating and fighting terrorism clearly is not working. You've only engendered the problem worse off. Another way that they've tried to deal with it is by creating legislation. So what we can do is, we can now tap your emails, we can now stop you, we can now ask you questions, we can now put you in jail and hold you for as long as we want, without trial. We can even waterboard you as long as you're not in this country, or we don't get caught doing it. And then this is our way of dealing with extremism. Again, has this seemed to deal with the issue in the last 10, 12, 15 years, or even longer? Has this managed to liberate a community that has this problem from within itself? It cannot be reliant upon bombs that will push people back for a few days, a few weeks, a few months. You have not uprooted the ideology of extremism. You may create as much legislation as you want. That deals with things after they have become extreme. Once they're searching on the internet for extreme material, once they're trying to purchase material to create bombs, that is when we will find you, and that is when we will capture you. Again, you have not uprooted the ideology of extremism itself. If the rest of the world is not going to deal with this properly, we have to take responsibility to deal with it properly. Why? Islam is your amana. Number one. Number two, as much as the extremism is targeting the Western world, by priority it is targeting the Shia world. And so, if we are the ones who are primarily the targets of this extremism, we surely have to be part of the solution and not sitting there as lame ducks, waiting to be beheaded, waiting in this country or any country to be blown up. Again, I ask you a question. How many times have you heard a scholar put a paper together, political leaders put a paper together, a plan to be able to deal with this? Now, I'm not saying to you, I'm the one to deal with this. We are bringing the discussion because it's one of the most important issues of our time, and maybe collectively we can start thinking about what we need to do for our time. What are the potential solutions? How do we deal with extremism within the community? The questions need to be at two levels. What are the causes for extremism? They're divided into two. One is the psychological, and two is the educational. And so we need to be in a position here in our communities to affect change in light of our own immediate community. Possibly you and I cannot change what is happening immediately in Iraq. Possibly you and I cannot change immediately what is happening in Syria. Of course, we must have a voice. Of course, we will express an opinion. Of course, we will speak and march and protest and put things on social media. Absolutely. But in terms of the immediate community that we have in front of us, can we affect change? The Muslims, and especially the Shia, are supposed to be ambassadors of the truth. And so I ask, are we able to make truth? Are we able to distinguish false Islam from true Islam? Yes. People do have that capacity to know true Islam. But if we are not thinking about how to effect that change, how people are going to be introduced to that true Islam, then we have nothing more than to bear the responsibilities when the chickens come home to roost. Tomorrow, God forbid, when people return from war, now just think about this very carefully. I'm not a prophet of doom. We are talking as thinkers here. Imagine tomorrow, I'm just giving you a scenario. Imagine tomorrow ISIS, by and large, are defeated. Yes? So right now, there is the movement, obviously, in Iraq. There is the movement in Syria. There is movement in Lebanon. There is historically the potential threat in Jordan. We have seen people in the streets of Australia and Pakistan waving the ISIS flag. We saw in Hajj this year, on the day of Arafah, people waving the ISIS flag. So imagine tomorrow they manage to win this particular war. They will not annihilate everyone, because as we said, you've not uprooted the ideology. Even if ISIS declare the white flag and say we surrender, they will disperse into the land and hide themselves to be able to continue this war. What happens if, God forbid, they come here tomorrow? Have we done anything to affect change in our local partners, to help build a partnership, to be able to deal with this particular issue? In the United Kingdom, this year, right now, this Muharram, 1436 after Hijrah, the United Kingdom government told every Shia Husseiniya, every Shia Imam Bargha, be on high level alert because a terror attack in your masjid is imminent. Imminent in your 12 days of commemorating Muharram. It's real. It's a real threat. It's happening in Canada. It's happening in Boston. It's happening in Belgium. We need to start thinking about how we are partners in education. The more we bury our heads in the sand, the more the non-Muslims get a picture of Islam that is not. It is putting them off Islam. The more we bury our head in the sand, the more other non-Shia sects are becoming radicalized. This is the issue. Today, our brothers in the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, may Allah bless them, do not know how they are being co-opted into Wahhabism. They don't realize the ideology of Saudi Arabia. They don't realize that for years and decades, Saudi Arabia has been funding masajid after masajid, giving out literature, putting books, funding the imams. Do you know what they say? You want to build a masjid? No problem. What? Just put a blank check. I'll sign it. Put whatever number of zeros you want. I'll build a masjid for you. But in return, we give you our imam. We will tell you what Islam is like. Now, if this is being bred, we need to be able to work with our partners. We don't want extremism. No one in the West wants extremism. Why are we not talking about where extremism is coming from, where it is rooted in? which ideologies it is coming from, which countries it is coming from, and why the Western world is still partnering and pumping billions and billions of dollars into the economy of those countries when that is the root of all terrorism and extremism today. But we haven't affected that change. We haven't called our local ambassadors. We haven't called our local congressmen. We haven't called our local parliamentarians to our masjids, to our Husseyniyat, to engage in that dialogue, because they're being fed a story and they don't know the other side of the story. Who is to blame, them or us? Us. We have to start taking responsibility for our ummah. The Islam is an amana upon you. It is your responsibility, my responsibility, to deal with this particular issue. Islamic extremism comes from two reasons. The first one is due to psychological traits. According to psychologists, all forms of extremism share certain psychology. It's very easy. You can just go into Google and type this and read into the psychiatrists and psychologists and the work that they have done. They will tell us that any extremism, whether you're part of the KKK, whether you're part of the English Defence League, a right-wing thuggish movement in the United Kingdom, or you're part of ISIS, the psychology is exactly the same. What is the psychology? Number one, they will say that you have been breeded in violence. You have been exposed to violence at a young age. And so you think that violence is a way to be able to deal with things. Number one. Number two, they will say that this person feels disenfranchised from his own community. They are loners, they are outsiders. They are people that are looking for a calling. And the moment they find that calling, they apply that extremism into that calling. Number two. Number three, they are easily manipulated. They are people with maybe not having been exposed to higher education. They are people that can be molded and told things. When you are told, and literally you are told, you get 70 virgins if you kill a non-Muslim, and you get 140 virgins if you kill a Shia, then you know that there is something wrong with that individual and the way in which he has been educated. And so, in this way, the education system needs to be challenged. This is the second issue. There was a Harvard University graduate by the name, I forget his name now. I will remember it, inshallah. I will remember it, inshallah, hopefully during the discussion. He did a study of 100 different Salafi scholars. Yes, and he tried to examine how the education system impacts extremist ideology. He's found out, or his paper said the following: when a scholar is academically active, has links to other scholars, other academic institutes, there is a 2 to 3% chance of radicalization or radicalism words coming from his tongue. When he does not have access to other schools, other ideas, other ideologies, it is more than 50% chance of radicalization coming from that scholar. 100 Salafi scholars he looked at. What came from them, their background, the influences they had on their community. Harvard student, Harvard graduate. 50% or more extremism comes when there is a lack of education and accessibility to other ideologies. What does this tell you very simply? This tells us that we need to be engaging in dialogue. We need to be open with people. We need to be inviting people. We need to invite ourselves over there if necessary. But the root cause is ill education, and so the only way to uproot this is through education. Think about this very carefully. Rasulullah came to a community in his own way that was very extreme. He spent years, 40 years silently building trust to people. Just building trust. And then he spent 23 years preaching. Number two, when he started preaching, as we've been saying all along, he does not excommunicate any type of people. He didn't say, we're the Muslim Ummah and now you Jews and Christians just go and live somewhere else. He kept everyone together. Everyone would speak with each other. They would meet, they would talk, they would be invited, they would dialogue, they would debate. What we have ended up becoming is a very insular community where when people from other sects come, they don't even feel welcome in our community. The preacher comes and he starts speaking against things that they don't feel welcome to come and listening to. We don't go to them, and when we do, it is almost to tick the box. It is Eid, and so we should have some sort of gathering. It is Rasulullah's birthday, and so we should have some sort of gathering. It's that once a year, and we should have that gathering in order to tick the box. Islam is not about ticking the box. This is not what we are supposed to be doing. To say, well, now once a year I've had a Christian and Muslim dialogue. This year I managed to invite the Sheikh from the Sunni Masjid here, and now I'm done for the next 365 days. This is how we have become. The Ahl al-Bayt, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, have told us to do the exact opposite. Two famous narrations come from the master, the commander of the faithful. Number one, he says, uproot evil in other people through uprooting evil in yourselves. Number one. Number two, he says, reform the evildoer by doing good deeds to them. If I keep a distance between me and someone else, how can I engage in that reformation between me and that person? We have to be very open with our brothers and sisters from all sects and all faiths. We need to be people who engage genuinely, that meet the challenges of our time. Very simple things we can do. Let me give you a simple example. And we prove this by the way in which the Ahl al-Bayt speak. I, as an individual, for example, in this community, I don't know anything about the four Imams of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The opposite is true as well. My brothers from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah don't know anything about my 12 Imams. True or not? Tell me, truly, do they know Imam Baqir alayhi salam? Truly, do they know Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam? Wouldn't you love for them to know who Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam is? What he stood for, the way in which he interacted, the beauty and the traditions that came from him? How are you going to do that unless you make the move to be able to have a collective movement of education between each other? So why not invite the Sunni Sheikh here and say, we would like to know more about your Imams. Come and teach us, come take the stand and speak to us. Give us the biography of Imam Abu Hanifa. We'll learn. And at the same time, we'll invite your community here. And we will also speak about a contemporary of Imam Abu Hanifa. And we will speak about our 5th Imam. We will speak about our 6th Imam. We will speak about our 7th Imam. You teach us for 45 minutes about Imam Abu Hanifa, his intellectual accomplishments, the trials and tribulations he underwent. We will also speak to you about who our 7th Imam is. We will speak to you about who our 4th Imam is. And it won't happen overnight, I know. But it has to be fostered with long-term goals and apparatus. Maybe when they come here, we can give them a gift. Maybe we can give them Sahifa Sajjadiyya for every brother and sister that comes here. And so when they go home, maybe, just maybe, they will open up and read Zams al-Muhammad. Maybe when they become ill, they will open up and see the way the 4th Imam spoke. Maybe when their parents go pass away from this world, they will open up and read the way in which the 4th Imam prayed for his parents. And then they will learn who we are. Until now, they don't know who we are. They don't know our Imams. You know what they know about us? They know about us, they think that Jibreel alayhi salam was supposed to send the Quran towards Ali ibn Abi Talib. Can you imagine? They still believe that until today. Many people. They look at us and all they know is tatbir. True or not? What do they know about us? What do they know about the akhlaq? What do they know about the insights, the tafasir? Our history and tradition. How are we going to overcome this extremism? the hatred that is building between sects, between faiths. It can only be through education and dialogue. I will conclude with a tradition from our 11th Imam, Hassan al-Askari, salawatullah wa alayhi. Who is our 11th Imam? Our 11th Imam is the last Imam before the event of Ghaibah. Meaning, when he gives to us a wasiyyah, he is giving us a wasiyyah knowing that his son is going to go into Ghaibah, and so he leaves something for us amongst his final statements for us to be able to take into our own eras. This is a very famous narration, and you'll find this in many different books. The first book that it's found in is Tuhfa al-Uqul, the masterpieces of the intellect. One of the earliest compilations of ahadith in our school of thought. In the mid-300s, 324 after Hijrah. The narration says, I bid you towards taqwa and wara'a, piety. And he continues to list in his wasiyyah to his Shia, and he says, I want you to be people of truthful speech, people who have longitude in their sajda, people who extend their sajda. I want you to be people that when amanat comes to you, you look after the amanat. And then he says something phenomenal. Sallu fi asha'irahum. Pray amongst them, or amongst their communities, amongst their folk, their people. Who do you think is their people? It's a wasiyyah li shi'atihi. It's a wasiyyah to his Shia. So when he says pray amongst their folk, amongst their communities, who do you think he is speaking about? Is he speaking about the Shia internally? It can't be, because then he would say pray with us. He didn't say that. Sallu fi asha'irahum. Pray with them, with their communities. Who is being spoken about here? The awam, the masses of the community, the non-Shia community. Pray amongst them, with them. Partake in their janazah, partake in their funeral procession. This is your 11th Imam in his wasiyyah. Pray amongst them. Partake in their janazah. Visit their sick folk and return the trust to them when they give it to you. For if you are a person who is truthful in his speech, if you are a person with good akhlaq, you would be known as my Shia, and that would please me. You see, this narration can't be about taqiyya, can it? Because he says, قِيل هَذَا شِيعِي. It would be said, he is my Shia. If it was taqiyya, he would say, pray amongst them, but I don't want you to be known as my Shia. No, I want you to be known as Shia. I want you to have your akhlaq stand out. But the way in which you achieve that, the way in which you are known who you are, is by praying with them, is by partaking in their funeral ceremonies, is by visiting their sick folk, is by giving back the trusts when they give it to you. If you do these things, it would please me, your 11th Imam. Now it's phenomenal. The 11th Imam gave that statement in his final days, knowing that Ghaibah was about to envelope the Shia. Why? To leave us that wasiyyah so that we understand how we are supposed to act. Our problem is, we have not followed the statements of Ahlul Bayt. We have done it the opposite way round. We are people that think we can reform the ummah through polemics. Rasulullah reformed his entire country through akhlaq. Hence he was known as As-Sadiq and Al-Amin. If we understand this, we will begin to reflect upon our own responsibilities in our community. Terrorism that is taking place is one of the greatest trials and tribulations of our era. We need to sit and think, what is our community actually for? Now that we have established ourselves, our center, now that we have, mashallah, hundreds of people coming, what is the next stage of our development and our evolution? What do we want our communities to become? Where should we be in 50 years' time? Will this majalis just remain the majalis and then we go home? Or will something more profound in the infrastructure of our community come from these majalis? This is something that now, this discussion and this debate needs to take place amongst our national and international communities to deal with the threat of extremism within our community and the threat of extremism external to our immediate community. Imam al-Hussein, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, was faced with an extremism, with a hatred of unparalleled manifestations. In the morning of Ashura, the narrations tell us Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would walk back and forth from the tent into the battlefield. And each time he would introduce himself as to whom he is. He would say, do you not know that I am the son of Fatima al-Zahra? Do you not know that I am the grandson of Rasulullah? Do you not know that from my family is Ja'far, the one who flies in heaven with wings? Do you not know from our family is Hamza, the lion of God, master of the martyrs? And they would continuously say, yes, we do. Then why are you fighting me? I'm fighting you because you are the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. I fight you because you have not given bay'ah to the caliph. We will take you towards him and we will make you do your bay'ah or we will kill you. Look at the way in which continuously, in the face of all death, Hussein ibn Ali tried to engage in dialogue with those enemies of his. On that day, it may be said that there is no death that tore the heart of Hussein ibn Ali like the death of Ali al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar was the one who resembled his grandfather Rasulullah most in appearance, in character, and in voice. After Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam was attacked and her house had been set ablaze and the door had fallen upon her and the nail had pierced her chest and she had lost her baby Muhsin, it is said one day that Bilal al-Habashi returned back towards the city of Medina, having tried to escape the fitna that had taken place immediately after the death of Rasulullah. These were the final days of Fatima al-Zahra. And so when he returned, one narration says that he immediately came to that house, that door. Which door? The same door that when Rasulullah would leave for an expedition, he would go to that door and say, Assalamu alayki ya Fatima al-Zahra. And when he would return from that expedition, the first place he would return back to was that door and say, Assalamu alayki ya Fatima al-Zahra. That door Bilal al-Habashi returned back to and saw it was smoldering, saw the fire had been put out. He ran towards that door and said, what has happened? The first to meet him was Fidda. Fidda, salamullahi alayha, came out and said, oh Bilal, where were you when we needed you? Where were you when the house of Fatima was being set ablaze? It is said, Bilal enters into that house and gives condolences to the Ahl al-Bayt. In that discourse, Fatima al-Zahra comes and sits with him and says, oh Bilal, you are the first muazzin of Islam.
please, I ask you something. You see, Bilal had taken an oath upon himself that he would not recite adhan anymore, because he felt that if he was reciting adhan, he would be consenting to the khilafat that was taking place. So he had taken an oath, never again will this country, will this man hear the adhan of Bilal al-Habashi. And so Fatima al-Zahra, in that state of pain, in that state of loss, she comes towards Bilal and says, "Oh Bilal, I long to remember what it was like during the time of my father, Rasulullah. Please, I ask you to be able to recite the adhan just once more for me. I want to remember what it was like underneath the protection of my father, Rasulullah, the time when Islam flourished, when the brilliance of humanity was being shown. When Fatima asks something of you, you do not say no." And so Bilal went and gave that adhan. He said, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah." When he came to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, it is said that Fatima al-Zahra collapsed in a state of grief. On the morning of Ashura, it was Ali al-Akbar that gave the adhan. I ask you, brothers and sisters, if Fatima al-Zahra collapsed from having heard the adhan from Bilal al-Habashi, just remembering the era of her father Rasulullah, how did Zainab and Kurthum feel when they heard the adhan of Ali al-Akbar, the one who resembled Rasulullah the most? Surely when he recited the adhan, Fatima al-Zahra's daughters must have remembered what it was like underneath the time of Rasulullah. And so they would also have remembered their mother Fatima, their father Ali ibn Abi Talib, their brother Hassan al-Mujtaba. But today they see the resemblance of Rasulullah, and knowing that he will enter into the battlefield never to return, but with a spearhead embedded into his chest. It is said that the first of the family members to go is Ali al-Akbar, because being the eldest son, capable of fighting, he could not allow anyone else to go before him. And so we hear that when he goes towards his father Hussein, he says, "My father, I wish to enter into the battlefield. Do you give me permission?" And indeed, Hussein ibn Ali, he would always say to every companion, to every family member, "Please do not go. There is no need for you to go. Stay here." But this was the one person that Hussein ibn Ali could not say no to. He would turn to him and say, "Oh Akbar, go into the battlefield. But before you go into the battlefield, seek permission from your mother." The narration says that he goes towards his mother Layla and says, "Oh mother, I have seen the companions going. It is none left but Banu Hashim now. Do you allow me to enter into the battlefield?" Layla says, "Go, defend your father Aba Abdullah." Akbar returns back towards Abu Abdullah and says, "I have been given permission by my mother." Listen to the response by Hussein. Hussein turns towards his son Akbar and says, "Oh Akbar, this was not the mother I was referring to. Go to your mother Zainab, for she has been like your mother since the first day. Zainab has brought you up. Please go and ask from your mother Zainab before you enter into the battlefield." And so Akbar enters into the tents and he seeks permission to go into the battlefield. What must that scene have been like when they came towards Akbar? How would they have clung to his arm? How would they have clung to his feet and said, "Oh resemblance of Rasulullah, please do not enter into the battlefield. How we long for your presence." It is said that Akbar enters into that battlefield, and before he does, it is said that he comes towards his father, and as he does, he comes and he ascends the horse. As he enters in towards the battlefield, we are told that Hussein ibn Ali follows him step by step. Every time Akbar takes a step into the battlefield, Hussein ibn Ali follows him into the battlefield. Akbar turns round towards his father. Oh father, why do you follow me into the battlefield? Hussein ibn Ali responds by saying, Oh Akbar, if you had a son like mine, you would not be asking that question. Why do you ask me? Why do I follow you into the battlefield? For I long to be able to see you. It is said that he sends towards, it is said that he follows his son into the battlefield, and so when he returns, Layla is standing by the tents as well, next to or behind her husband, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The Dhakirin tell us that there is a time that she would be looking towards the battlefield, but she could not see what was happening to her son. And so she would look towards her husband's face, because when her husband had a face of terror, she knew that her son was being attacked. And when Hussein ibn Ali's face turned to a smile and a radiating glow, she knew her son was killing the enemies. And this is how she knew that she was successfully sending her son into the battlefield. Hussein's son enters into that battlefield and begins to fight and begins to send many of the enemy towards the hellfire. As he does, we hear from our Dhakirin that the mother of Akbar makes a dua and says, Oh Allah, you are the one who returned Ismail back towards Hajra. I am asking you to give me one final glimpse of my son before he parts from this world. At this moment, Allah inspires the heart of Akbar. He turns Akbar back towards his family. Akbar returns. He throws himself into the arms of his father and says, Father, the thirst of Karbala is killing me. I do not have any more strength. Please give me a drop of water. Is there anything that you can give to me? Oh fathers, when your son comes to you and asks you for anything, is there a time that you deny him? If he asks for any food or water, is there a time that you would deny him? But Hussein's heart is being punctured at this moment. He turns towards Akbar and says, Oh Akbar, I will give you my tongue. If there is a drop of saliva from my tongue, take from my tongue, I will gladly give it to you. He puts his tongue out. Akbar puts his tongue towards the tongue of Hussein. It is said that he leaps backwards and says, Father, your tongue is even drier than mine. How are you surviving the thirst and the heat of Karbala in such a way? At this moment, he embraces his father for one final time, and he enters into that battlefield. The next time Hussein sees his son, he will have a spear embedded in towards his chest. Akbar fights towards the enemies, but there is one person by the name of Abi Murrah. Abi Murrah is saying that I will strike a sword, a dagger, something into this man. I will make his father weep for him. At this point, Abi Murrah hides behind a tree. Akbar is fighting gallantly. He is sending all of the enemies towards the hellfire. But Abi Murrah is said to be an expert. An expert is a person who would throw spears. This time, as Akbar is charging towards the battlefield on his horse, Murrah takes the spear out and he begins to take it behind his back. And then as Akbar comes towards him, he thrusts that spear into the chest of Ali ibn al-Akbar. Akbar falls towards the ground. When he calls towards his father, his call is different to every other companion and every other family member. Every other family member said, Aghithni ya Aba Abdullah, come towards my aid, O Aba Abdullah. Akbar was the one person that did not call out for his father, did not call out for Aba Abdullah. Do you know why? Because he knows this moment will kill Hussein ibn Ali. He did not say, please come to my aid. knowing that he did not want his father to see him at this time. It is said that Abu Abdullah cries out, "Oh Akbar, I have gone blind. The pain is so much. By Allah, if Yaqub turned blind over Yusuf when he was alive, can you imagine what Hussein felt at the knowledge of what happened to his dear son Akbar? Akbar calls out, "Father, accept my final salutation." Hussein cries out, "I have gone blind." Hussein falls towards the floor. He calls out, "Akbar, my dear son, please continue to call for your father so I can hear your voice and I can come crawling towards you." Hussein crawls along the burning sands of Karbala. Akbar is calling out for his father. Eventually he arrives at the broken body. What does he find? He finds Akbar's hand is placed hiding upon his chest. Imam looks at him and says, "Oh my son, what are you hiding? Why is your hand upon your chest?" He looks down and he sees the spearhead embedded into his chest. This is the final moments of Ali al-Akbar. At this moment, he looks towards his son and he says to him, "Now you will go towards your grandfather." It is said at this moment, he places his leg, one knee upon the sands of Karbala. He places one leg upon the stomach or upon the chest of Akbar and places his hand upon that spearhead. This is the moment in which the blood of Akbar will run upon the body of Hussein ibn Ali. He places his hand upon that spear. It is said that he raises his head and he looks towards Najaf. Why Najaf? Because all of us get our strength from Ali ibn Abi Talib. He looks towards Najaf and says, "Father, you are the one who lifted the gates of Khaybar, but you have never had to lift a spearhead from your own son's chest. Come from Najaf to Karbala and see what Hussein ibn Ali is about to do." He places his hand upon that spearhead. He places it and he rips it out of the chest of Akbar. Akbar's blood gushes over the face of Hussein. Hussein wipes the blood over his face and upon his beard. He looks towards the sky. "Oh Allah, bear witness what they have done to my son Akbar. Oh Allah, do not allow any of them to live. Oh Allah, cast them in the way in which they were. They did not grant any water to the grandson of Rasulullah." He drags the body of Akbar back towards the tents. If Zainab was the mother of Akbar, imagine how a mother meets her 18-year-old son. At this moment, they run out of the tents crying, "Wa Akbar, oh Akbar, how can we live after you? Akbar, you were the apple of the eye of your father Hussein. Oh Akbar, who is there after you for us?" At this moment, they rush around the body of Akbar. Imam takes the body back into the tent, and after Qasim's death, he sits down between these two bodies. He places his right hand upon the chest of Akbar, the left hand upon the broken body of Qasim, that shattered chest of Qasim, and looks again towards the sky. "Oh Allah, bear witness they have taken the sons of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein." ألا لعنة الله على الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وقاتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا ماتنا حسين يا حسين
يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein जो मांगते हैं रन की रजा पे से शबीर देखते हैं हसरत भरी नजर से हसरत भरी नजर से अकबर जो मांगते हैं जन की रजा पे से शबीर देखते हैं हसरत भरी नजर से हसरत भरी नजर से अकबर जो मांगते हैं जन की रजा पे से शबीर देखते हैं हसरत भरी नजर से हसरत भरी नजर से अकबर को मांगते हैं रजा पे से शबीर देखते हैं हसरत भरी नजर से हसरत भरी नजर से आज किसी